What if I told you that September isn't the end of the gardening season, but its triumphant culmination? When most people are throwing in the towel, Soviet agronomists were just beginning to deploy their best strategies. Forget everything you thought you knew about empty autumn garden beds. Today, we're going to uncover those secret archives and unearth techniques that allowed for astounding yields even as winter approached. You'll be surprised how simple, logical, and effective these methods are. Let's take a moment to step back in time. In an era without a vast array of fertilizers and growth stimulants, and where every kilogram of produce was worth its weight in gold, Soviet agronomists relied on a profound understanding of nature, scientific principles, and sheer ingenuity. Their methods weren't magic. They were a meticulously refined system of working with plants and soil. They knew how to make nature work for them, right up until the last warm day. And it's precisely these insights we'll be exploring today. So let's start with the fundamentals. The first and most crucial secret to a successful September harvest lies in rethinking your plant's nutritional needs. Many gardeners, out of habit, continue to fertilize as they did in July. And that's a major error. Remember the golden rule for September: minimal to no nitrogen. Nitrogen stimulates lush, green growth, producing new leaves and shoots. But why do we need that now? Colder weather is just around the corner, and all that tender new growth will simply freeze, draining your plant's precious energy. Our goal isn't to encourage leafy bulk, but to redirect all that energy into developing fruits and strengthening roots. That's why we shift our focus to two other critical elements: phosphorus and potassium. Phosphorus acts as the conductor for ripening. It helps fruits plump up, develop their vibrant colours, and accumulate vital nutrients more quickly. And potassium is the true superhero of autumn. It's responsible for enhancing flavour, making fruits and root vegetables sweeter. It boosts your plant's immunity to diseases. And most importantly, potassium significantly improves frost resistance, preparing your plants for those first chilly nights. So, what should you use? Monopotassium phosphate is an ideal choice. Alternatively, you can use superphosphate and potassium sulfate. And for those who prefer organic options, good old wood ash is a fantastic choice, packed with potassium and essential micronutrients. Alright, so we've got the feeding part covered, but even the best fed plant won't give you a harvest if it simply freezes. That's why the second secret is all about preserving that precious daytime heat. September can be quite tricky. While the sun might still be blazing during the day, temperatures can plummet at night, often dropping close to freezing. For heat-loving crops like tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers, this is a major stressor that halts fruit ripening. So, what clever solutions did our resourceful predecessors come up with? They improvised mini greenhouses from practically nothing. The simplest method is to cover your garden beds overnight with a non-woven fabric, like spunbond or horticultural fleece. Simply drape it over low hoops or directly onto the plants themselves. Crucially, remember to remove the covering in the morning so your plants don't get soggy or overheat and can get their much-needed sun. Now, for a slightly more ingenious technique: thermal mass accumulators. Grab some ordinary plastic bottles, fill them with water, and place them strategically between your plants. Throughout the day, the water inside heats up from the sun. Then, at night, it slowly releases that stored warmth, gently heating the air and soil nearby. You can achieve the same effect with large, dark stones. These are low-cost, yet incredibly effective ways to protect your harvest from early frosts and extend your growing season by another 2 to 3 weeks. The third cornerstone of a successful September harvest is proper watering. This is where most gardeners fall into the trap of their summer habits. They see dry soil and continue to generously drench their beds, just like they would in July. This leads to disastrous consequences. In autumn, the sun is no longer as intense. Moisture evaporates slowly from the soil surface, and nights become cold and damp. Excessive watering under these conditions is a direct path to an outbreak of fungal diseases, especially blight and powdery mildew. Plant roots begin to suffocate and rot in the cold, soggy soil. So, what's the correct approach? Reduce your watering by 2 or even 3 times. Water only in the morning, giving the topsoil a chance to dry out before nightfall, and always use warm, sun-warmed water that's been allowed to settle. Icy water straight from a well or tap is a shock to the root system, stunting all growth processes. Your main guide should be the soil's condition at a depth of 5-7 centimetres, or about 2 to 3 inches. If it feels damp there, you can safely hold off on watering. Remember, in September, it's always better to slightly underwater than to overwater. And now, for that clever trick to get your stubborn tomatoes to finally turn red. You've probably faced this situation. Your plants are bursting with green tomatoes, but it's late September, and they show no signs of ripening. Of course, you could pick them green and let them ripen in a box, but the flavour just won't be the same. Soviet-era agronomists knew a secret to get those tomatoes to ripen right on the vine. This technique is called artificial drought, or the stress method. Sensing a threat to its survival, the plant instinctively channels all its energy into reproduction, which means rapidly ripening the seeds inside its fruit. And the ripening of seeds and the reddening of the tomato are closely linked processes. So, how do you do this? There are a few different ways. The simplest: gently grasp the plant at the base of its main stem and pull it slightly upwards as if you're trying to uproot it. You'll hear a slight crunch. That's tiny feeder roots breaking off. These roots are precisely what absorb moisture and nutrients. That's it. The plant now receives less water and thinks a drought has begun. Alternatively, you can make a vertical, clean cut through the stem, about 10 centimetres or 4 inches from the ground, and insert a small twig or matchstick into it to keep the edges from closing. The effect is the same. In just about a week, you'll see your tomatoes start to ripen en masse. Thought cucumber season was done by August? Think again. If your cucumber vines are yellowing and yields are dropping, don't rush to pull them out. There's a way to revive them and get another late-season flush of crunchy cucumbers. The secret lies in rejuvenating their root system. Over time, the main root ages and becomes less efficient. Our goal is to encourage the plant to grow new, young and vigorous roots. To do this, carefully remove the lower, yellowed leaves from the cucumber vine. Then gently take the vine off its trellis or support and carefully coil the bare section of the stem on the ground, right at the base of the plant. Cover this coiled section of the vine with fertile soil or compost, leaving only the growing tip, with its young leaves and flowers, exposed. Then water it thoroughly with warm water. In just about a week, new roots will start to emerge from the buried stem. These new roots will give your plant a second wind. This surge of fresh energy will fuel the growth of new cucumbers, which you'll enjoy harvesting almost until the first frost. Focusing on our beloved heat-loving plants, peppers and eggplants. Their biggest challenge in September is their relentless ambition. They tirelessly try to grow new leaves, set new flowers, and develop tiny fruitlets right up until the very end of the season. But we understand these late starters have absolutely no chance of maturing, and yet they drain immense energy from the mother plant. So, in September, our primary goal is to make sure our peppers and eggplants concentrate all their efforts on the fruits they've already established. To achieve this, grab your pruning shears and act decisively yet carefully. Ruthlessly snip off all new flowers and any tiny, clearly unpromising fruitlets. Pinch back the tips of all main shoots to halt their upward growth. Also, remove some lower leaves, especially those that are shading the developing fruits. Direct sunlight on the peppers and eggplants dramatically speeds up their ripening and significantly improves their flavour. This strategic haircut sends an unmistakable signal to the plant. Enough with the new growth. It's time to deliver the harvest. All vital sap and nutrients are then redirected to the remaining fruits, which will begin to plump up and fully ripen, often practically before your eyes. Now let's dig a little deeper and talk about root vegetables. For carrots, beets and daikon, September is a truly crucial month. They stop focusing on leafy growth and instead start channeling all their energy into intensely accumulating mass and sugars in their roots. And our job is to give them a helping hand. This is where a simple yet incredibly effective nutrient comes into play. Boron. Boron is actually responsible for transporting those precious sugars from the leaves down into the root vegetables. Without enough boron, your carrots and beets can turn out watery, bland, and may even develop unsightly hollow cores. So, how do we address this deficiency? It's surprisingly simple. You'll just need some boric acid, which is readily available at any pharmacy or garden centre. Simply dissolve just 2 grams, that's roughly half a teaspoon, into 10 litres of warm water. Then use this solution for foliar feeding, which means you simply spray the leafy tops of your plants. It's best to apply this in the evening or on a cloudy day to maximise absorption and prevent leaf burn. This simple procedure, carried out in early September, will dramatically boost the sugar content of your root vegetables, making them incredibly delicious and ensuring they store much better throughout the winter. What about autumn star vegetable? Cabbage. In September, it's busy forming and compacting its heads, but this is when gardeners often face 2 main issues. Either the heads are too loose, or they split open from too much moisture after autumn rains. Experienced gardeners of old had an elegant solution for both problems. If your cabbage heads just aren't firming up, you need to gently limit their nutrient supply from the roots. To do this, much like with tomatoes, carefully pull the plant slightly upwards to snap some of the smaller roots. Alternatively, you can cautiously slice the roots on one side with a spade. This mild stress encourages the plant to actively store more nutrients in the head, making it denser. Now, to protect those already firm, well-developed heads from cracking, you need to do the opposite. Ensure a consistent but moderate flow of moisture, avoiding sudden changes. The best way to achieve this is to thoroughly mulch the soil around your cabbage, perhaps with grass clippings or straw. Mulch prevents the soil from drying out too quickly and releases moisture evenly. This way, even after heavy rainfall, your cabbage heads won't get waterlogged and will remain intact and beautiful. And let's not forget our sweet friend, the strawberry, or garden strawberry to be precise. For these plants, September isn't the end of the season. It's actually the beginning of the next. This is the crucial time when the foundation for next year's harvest is laid. Your diligent autumn care will directly determine if you'll be enjoying plump, juicy berries come June. So what exactly should you do? First up, a thorough clean-up. Ruthlessly remove all old, diseased or discoloured leaves, leaving only the vibrant, healthy central crown. Second, snip off all runners, unless you're intentionally propagating new plants, of course. These runners drain a tremendous amount of energy from the mother plant. Energy it desperately needs right now to set flower buds for next year's harvest. Thirdly, and arguably most important, is feeding. After a summer of generous fruiting, your strawberry plants are likely exhausted. They, much like your other garden vegetables, now require a boost of phosphorus and potassium. You can use a balanced autumn fertilizer with a low nitrogen content. Alternatively, for a more traditional approach, simply scatter wood ash around the base of the plants and lightly work it into the soil. This will provide essential potassium and also help protect against common fungal diseases. This relatively simple care in September will truly reward you with an incredibly bountiful harvest next season. Autumn isn't just about harvesting, it's also a prime time for plant diseases. Dampness, cold nights, and misty mornings create the perfect breeding ground for fungal infections. We're talking primarily about late blight on tomatoes and potatoes, and powdery mildew on cucumbers and zucchini. In September, when your crops are almost ready for picking, the last thing you want to do is douse them with harsh chemicals. This is where safe, yet surprisingly effective, traditional remedies come in handy, the kind of solutions avidly used by gardeners for generations, including many in Soviet times. For tackling late blight, a simple iodine and milk solution works wonders. To prepare it, combine 1 litre of low-fat milk or whey with 20 to 30 drops of standard pharmacy-grade iodine in 10 litres of water. The milk forms a protective film on the leaves, while the iodine provides antiseptic properties. Apply this spray every 7 to 10 days. As for powdery mildew, A washing soda solution is incredibly effective. Dissolve 50 grams of washing soda and 40 grams of grated laundry soap in 10 litres of warm water. The soap helps the solution stick better to the leaves. These treatments are completely safe for both people and your harvest, creating an alkaline environment on the plants where fungi simply cannot thrive. We're about to debunk a very common gardening myth, the idea that autumn leaves are just trash that needs to be burned. To a Soviet agronomist who made the most of every single resource, that statement would have sounded like pure sacrilege. Fallen leaves are far from trash. They're a priceless organic fertilizer, essentially free gold for your garden. So what exactly should you do with them? First off, they make ideal composting material. Mix them with grass clippings, kitchen scraps, and a bit of soil. And in about a year, you'll have top quality, fluffy, nutrient-rich compost. Secondly, leaf litter makes for the best winter mulch. You can use them to cover garden beds with overwintering seeds, the base of trees and shrubs, and strawberry patches. A good layer of leaves will insulate the soil from freezing, help retain moisture, and provide a welcoming home for beneficial earthworms. As winter progresses, these leaves will start to break down, and by spring, you'll be left with fluffy, well-structured, and organically enriched soil. There's only one crucial rule to remember. Always use leaves from healthy trees. If your apple or pear trees suffered from diseases like apple scab, then yes, it's definitely best to burn that foliage to avoid spreading the infection. Continuing our series on soil management, let's delve into an ingenious agricultural technique, planting cover crops. The old adage, nature abhors a vacuum, certainly applies here, a principle seasoned farmers and agronomists understood perfectly. Leaving garden beds bare over winter after harvest was considered a prime example of poor stewardship. Exposed soil is prone to erosion by rain and wind, compaction, and rapid weed growth. The elegant solution? Sowing these empty plots with cover crops, often referred to as green manures. So what exactly are cover crops? They are plants specifically grown for their ability to quickly produce a large amount of green biomass. This growth is then mowed down and incorporated directly into the soil. For autumn planting, excellent choices include mustard, oats, rye, and phacelia. What benefits do they bring? First, their robust root systems are incredibly effective at loosening and aerating the soil, often outperforming any spade. Second, as this green matter decomposes, it generously enriches the earth with valuable organic material and essential nutrients. Third, certain cover crops like mustard release compounds that act as natural disinfectants, suppressing the development of harmful fungi and deterring common pests such as wireworms. In essence, you're killing 3 birds with 1 stone. You enhance soil structure, fertilize it naturally, and even provide a protective treatment. Come spring, all that's left is a light tilling to incorporate the decomposed plants, and your garden beds will be perfectly prepared for the next round of successful plantings. Today, we're focusing on the garden's true royalty, the pumpkin. Often, due to a cool or short summer, pumpkins don't quite make it to full ripeness on the vine. They end up looking pale with soft skin, and unfortunately, these won't store well. So, how can we speed up the ripening process and help them develop that vibrant colour and delicious sweetness? There's a tried and true method we call cutting off the excess, or pruning for ripeness. Once you notice your pumpkins have reached their full varietal size but aren't quite ripe yet, it's time to stop the vine's vegetative growth. To do this, simply pinch off the growing tip of the main stem, leaving about 3 to 4 leaves past the last pumpkin. At the same time, remove any side shoots that aren't bearing fruit. This way, the plant stops wasting energy on producing more foliage and redirects all its valuable resources directly into ripening the pumpkins already on the vine. To further accelerate the process, you can carefully place a small board, a piece of old tile, or even slate underneath each pumpkin. First, this keeps the pumpkin from direct contact with cold, damp soil, which significantly reduces the risk of rot. Secondly, the board will absorb heat from the sun throughout the day and radiate that warmth back into the pumpkin, further encouraging quicker maturation. Beyond the vegetable patch, it's crucial not to forget about the orchard. September is the month when fruit trees, having already given us their harvest, start preparing for winter. Crucially, they also begin forming the flower buds for next year's crop, and it's our job to help them in this vital process. Just like with your vegetable beds, nitrogen is a no-go for fruit trees in autumn. Instead, focus on a phosphorus and potassium feed. This not only helps the wood mature and harden off for the coming frosts, but also provides the essential energy for those precious fruit buds to properly form. But how do you ensure these vital nutrients really get to work? Simply scattering granular fertilizer on the surface is largely ineffective, as phosphorus penetrates the soil very slowly. A far more efficient method is targeted application, sometimes known as localized feeding, around the drip line of the tree's canopy, which is where the most active feeder roots reside. Create several deep holes or punctures, about 30 to 40 centimeters deep. These can be made easily with a crowbar or a garden auger. Fill these precise openings with granular superphosphate and potassium sulfate, then water them thoroughly. This ensures the fertilizers bypass the surface and reach the crucial root zone directly, maximizing their uptake and benefit for the tree. Think of this autumn top-up as the ultimate investment in next year's bountiful apple or pear harvest. Here's a less obvious but incredibly important tip for planting your winter garlic. Everyone knows you plant it in the fall. But when exactly? Getting this wrong can literally cost you your entire harvest. Plant too early and the garlic will sprout, sending up tender green shoots that will inevitably freeze and die back in winter, significantly weakening the bulb. Plant too late, and the individual cloves won't have enough time to establish a healthy root system before the deep freezes hit, leaving them vulnerable to frost damage or even rot. Old-school agronomists, they didn't consult lunar calendars. Instead, they observed nature and kept an eye on their thermometers. The ideal time for planting garlic is when the soil temperature, measured at a depth of about 2 inches, 5 centimeters, consistently drops to and stays around 50-54 degrees Fahrenheit at 10 or 12 degrees Celsius for several days. This timing ensures your garlic has approximately 3 to 4 weeks to develop a strong root system before serious, prolonged frosts set in, but crucially, without sending up any green shoots above ground. But what if you don't have a soil thermometer? Don't worry, nature provides a reliable indicator. Just look to the trees. As soon as birch leaves begin to fall en masse, that's your dependable signal that the soil has cooled to the perfect temperature and it's time to get your garlic planted. Let's circle back to wood ash for a moment. While we've discussed its benefits as a potassium source, in September, wood ash has another equally important role. Beyond being a fertilizer, it's an excellent soil amendment for balancing pH, a great preventative against fungal diseases, and it helps deter certain garden pests. After the autumn harvest, especially on garden beds showing signs of acidity, like moss growth, a light dusting of dry wood ash is highly beneficial. Simply spread it uniformly across the bed surface. Autumn rains and spring snowmelt will gradually dissolve it, carrying its beneficial properties deep into the soil and gently normalizing its acidity. Furthermore, the alkaline environment created by the ash is detrimental to the spores of many pathogenic fungi, such as those that cause clubroot in cabbage. Slugs and certain soil pests also find the smell of ash highly repellent. Thus, this simple autumn procedure helps tackle several issues at once. It enriches the soil, regulates its pH, and helps sanitize your garden beds for the upcoming season. Our garden offers more than just food, it's a source of beauty too. And September is a crucial month when it comes to tending to your perennial flowers. To guarantee a spectacular display of peonies, phlox, irises and daylilies next year, they need your attention right now. For most perennials, the main task in September is division and transplanting. The clumps have likely grown significantly over the summer, their root systems have become dense, and the centres of the plants have aged. If left undivided, next year's blooms won't be as abundant, and the individual flowers might be smaller. So how do you go about it? Carefully dig up the plant, taking care not to damage the roots. Gently shake off any excess soil. Using a sharp knife or spade, Divide the root ball into several smaller sections, or divisions. Each division should have several healthy eyes, or growth buds, and a robust set of fibrous roots. The old, woody, central portion of the clump is best discarded. Plant these new vigorous divisions into freshly prepared spots. They'll have plenty of time to establish a strong root system during the autumn. Come spring, they'll emerge with renewed vigour, promising a much more powerful and vibrant bloom than an old, congested plant could ever provide. Growing a bountiful harvest is only half the battle. The other, equally crucial half, is knowing how to preserve it. What good are dozens of kilograms of carrots and beets if they've rotted or gone soft by January? The secret to long-term storage lies in properly preparing your root cellar or basement. And the best time to do this is in September, while the storage space is still empty. First things first, a thorough cleaning. Sweep out all debris and remove any remaining produce from last year. Next, it's time for disinfection. An old and proven method, particularly common in the past, is using a sulfur fumigator. The smoke from burning sulfur penetrates every crack and crevice, eliminating mold, fungi, insect pests, and even deterring rodents. Important, when using a sulfur fumigator, strict safety precautions must be followed, as the smoke is highly toxic. After treatment, securely seal the cellar for a couple of days, then thoroughly ventilate it for several days. Afterward, it's highly beneficial to whitewash the walls and shelves with freshly slaked lime, adding a touch of copper sulfate. The lime creates an alkaline environment, lethal to mold, while the copper sulfate enhances the disinfecting effect. Only after this thorough overhaul will your cellar be truly ready to receive your new harvest for winter storage. Many home gardeners, after harvesting their greenhouse crops, simply lock the door until spring. This is a huge mistake that could cost you dearly next season. Throughout the summer, your greenhouse becomes a perfect breeding ground for diseases and pests. Spores of late blight and powdery mildew, along with spider mite eggs and whitefly larvae, often lurk in the soil and on the greenhouse structures. If left unchecked, this entire army will awaken in spring and launch a full-scale assault on your young seedlings. That's why autumn greenhouse treatment isn't a luxury, it's an absolute necessity. So here's what you need to do. First, remove absolutely all plant residue, foliage, roots and weeds. These should be taken out and burned. Second, thoroughly clean the entire greenhouse structure from the inside. Wash the frame and covering, whether polycarbonate or glass, with a soapy solution, then rinse with clean water. This will wash away dust, grime, and most of the remaining pests. And third, sanitize the soil. You can drench it with a solution of copper or iron sulfate. Even better, as we've mentioned, sow your beds with green manure, like mustard. It will not only help rejuvenate the soil, but also improve its structure. This kind of deep clean in September is the key to a healthy and bountiful greenhouse harvest next season. And this brings us to the most important part, the real game changer. Were you expecting a secret ingredient? Some magic potion or a spell? Well, the main secret of Soviet agronomists wasn't any of that. It was all about a systematic approach and understanding that a garden, be it for flowers or vegetables, is one continuous integrated cycle. They didn't end the season in August. Instead, they smoothly transitioned it into a new phase, a phase of maturation, building strength, and preparing for the coming spring. While everyone else was putting away their tools, they were already working on next year's harvest. Their September tasks were an investment in the future. They weren't fighting nature. Rather, they were helping it complete its cycles as efficiently as possible. That's why simple methods, like using cover crops, proper pruning, and full fertilization, yielded such astounding results. It wasn't a one-time effort, but a well-thought-out, long-term strategy. So, as you can see, achieving a super harvest in September doesn't require expensive products. What you need is knowledge, keen observation, and a bit of dedicated work. These methods, proven over decades, still work today because the fundamental laws of nature haven't changed. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If these tips were helpful and you learned something new, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on other valuable gardening secrets. Now, a question for you. What tried and true tips do you have for your fall garden? Share your experience in the comments below, and let's build the best knowledge base together.